Well, good morning, everybody. I want to start off where we kind of left off yesterday, and that was with watching the big system rolling through California. Just looking at poweroutage.us, we're tracking this morning still about 200,000 people in California without power. This is down, of course, yesterday from numbers actually over the weekend that got up close to 1 million folks without, or 1 million customers, without power. So it's good to see that recovery is going pretty quickly there. My Twitter handle, if you don't know it, it's just Snodgers, Snodgrss. And if you haven't seen a lot about the flooding that's going on in California, I liked several videos that if you want to go to my Twitter account, you can just have a quick look at my profile and the videos. But I want to show you this one here. This is from Sierra's public site. So they use the satellite data that we fund to put up and make some incredible imagery of this. And I just want to show you the sheer size and scale of that atmospheric river event that hit parts of California, specifically Southern California yesterday. And I bring this up because you might hear some terms used by news media. I just want to make sure it's clear on what some of those terms are. So they're going to start talking about these flooding events with respect to years. So they might say it's a 100-year flooding event or 500-year or 1,000-year. And I want you to remember that terminology at times can be confusing. When we call it a 1,000-year flood, it just means that the probability of having a flood of that intensity in any given year is 1 in 1,000. So it is possible to have back-to-back 1,000-year flood events, right? I know it's a bit of a confusing term, but it's a statistic rather than a period or a frequency. So we can have, again, like I said, back-to-back 500-year floods or 1,000-year floods. And this one that just came through was pretty powerful in what it did. If we look at the snowfall totals, just remember we make a quick break from these darker reds up to this shade of color when you hit over 4 feet. So several locations here just in the last 3 days. Remember, we're adding this to the 2 feet of snow that came from the previous system that we tracked last week. And you put it all together, and we've got some places that picked up 6 to 7 feet in places. I bet there's a bit more. Later this week, when I think it's all done, I'm going to show you some of the new basin numbers. We'll kind of keep up to date on those. But if we just take a look at the last 7 days of total accumulated precipitation, this was through midnight tonight, we can see just how much moisture fell across California. So several locations here easily grabbing 6 to 12 inches of rainfall, and some local places even seeing a bit more than that. Now, that is not to ignore the very deep low that rolled yesterday over Florida. I mean, we've had a lot of very kind of high amplitude weather events as of late, but in the last 7 days, this is kind of the bigger picture here. Now, my website, agweather.com, ag-wx.com, you can look at any individual location. So I decided to go into LA. So currently right now, LA is almost 6 inches above their climatological average, which is the solid line that runs through here. And it's just a point that currently, they're sitting at 10.4 inches. And a normal year would finish with about, 16, maybe 17 inches of rain. So we could just roughly say they've had 2/3 of their annual rainfall already. Now, it's important to note that this dashed line here was last year. So last year, they more than doubled up on their total precipitation and even got very rare summer. Remember, we talked about that. That was the event that came through during that Burning Man festival. So just a tool I want to make sure that you all are aware of and that you can use, and just kind of keep you up to date on some of these longer-term statistics here. Because it's not just this. I've got year-to-date temperatures. I've got everything on this site that I think is important to kind of look at here. So just go check it out. All right, so where is everything this morning? Let's go ahead and click play on this. And I want to show you yesterday. It was interesting to watch the very intense fog that was over parts of the Great Lakes and also throughout the plains as the west was getting hit hard. You can see that low curling up over Florida there. And it's going to continue to intensify off the coast, but it'll be an offshore event, not really affecting the coastline here much at all with precipitation or even some cloud cover. I don't think we're going to see much from it. And as you notice here, this early morning, I had to record a bit early. I got to get over to northern Indiana today. I'll be in Kansas City tonight, and then South Dakota on Wednesday, Thursday. So looking forward to, or on Thursday, and then back home. So looking forward to talking to more growers this week. But early this morning, 3:25 a.m., we had the fog advisories out, and you can see here throughout the west where we have the winter storm warnings that are going to move over into the Central Rockies and the flooding issues we've got from California into Arizona. So let's go ahead and have a look at it with our high-res NAM model. We're going to pick this up about 7 a.m. this morning and watch this low curl out of the Rockies. And then, as we talked about, develop into parts of the northern plains. And the models for tomorrow on Wednesday midday, did kind of increase the possibility of this starting off with the right overrunning setup to make some ice. So I want to note that that is one thing that's changed as of late. But this low curls up right over, parts of Wyoming into the Dakotas, right along the border here. And as we talked about yesterday, we're going to advect a lot of warm air out ahead of this, which is going to put that rain snow line almost running north-south right here through the Dakotas and then getting into southern Manitoba as well. So some pretty decent snows on the backside. We'll take a look at how much in a moment. But this system here is the remnants of what just came through California the other day. Now, beyond this, there's been a bit of a fun go of it, model run to model run, and the European model's been bouncing around like mad with snow. So I'm going to show you something here. We're just going to do a very quick Dprog DT, that's the change in prognosis over time from the last 3 European model runs. So this is this morning's 7-day outlook on total snow. Now this is made at Weatherbell, so they have a little bit earlier break in their blues at 2 inches. Mine is at 4. You'll see those in a few moments. But latest run, take a look at the snow we're expecting here right along the U.S.-Canada border, getting fully into parts of southern Saskatchewan and over here into Manitoba and Ontario. But better snows across Montana, North Dakota, and Minnesota, places we've been talking about being a major deficit. Now that's not to ignore what's still coming through the west. And notice this over here right along the Blue Ridge Appalachian Mountains. Well, this is the run from today, the newest one I just got. If I take you back to yesterday's run, the 12Z, that's what it had. So there's some similarities in the west, but look at the differences in the snow here, and then your eye is really drawn to this guy right there. But watch this. If I go back to the 0Z run, the one I showed you in last video, it went back to this. So interestingly enough, the 0Z runs have looked similar, a little bit different total snowfall amounts here, and then the addition of this. I'll show you why in a second. But the 12Z runs from the last couple of days have wanted to really crank out this system, and I'm going to show you why they're struggling with it, okay? So first of all, I want you to remember that we were in these time periods of stable performance drop-off, stable performance drop-off, stable performance drop-off. Are we coming back up here to stable? That's a question. Even though I think we are getting better skill scores out of the models, they're mishandling this. This is the wave that will combine with everything else that's going on out ahead of it to make some sort of a system that comes ripping out of the mountains, and it either dives south or it dives in the Midwest. It is very poorly resolved where it's going to go. And I want to show it to you in the vorticity maps. We're watching this thing right here. Now you're like, well, wait a minute, what about all the other stuff out ahead of it? Yeah, there's lots going on, but this is the wave that the models are unable to kind of fully handle. This guy right here. Now watch, I'll just kind of step you forward to show you where it goes. This is by the time we get into Thursday where it is. Look, we have a much deeper trough ahead of it, but it's this wave that's going to get yanked through the flow. Here it is by the time we get to Friday, getting into Saturday, and then getting into Sunday, and then eventually into early next week. So you say, well, why is the snow right now in the Blue Ridge Mountains? Well, it's because the newest forecast dropped this wave much farther to the south than the 12Z run. The 12Z run, let's go back and look at it. We're looking for this guy here. It put it right here over Illinois. That's why the snow was on the northern side of it. General rule of thumb, in winter, find the deep trough, go about 500 miles to its west and north, and that's where you'll paint your heaviest snow. So there it is. See it? So the heavy snow is here. But now, the newest run takes it way down here and dips it right through this area. So we'll go about 500 miles this way. Maybe 500 miles a little generous, but maybe 200 miles, and there you got it. So the models are mishandling this. Well, let me rephrase that. The models are doing what they are designed to do. It's just that the kind of the chaos in the system and the fact that we're not out there measuring this with anything other than satellite and a couple of buoys and some stations here on the Aleutian Islands, we just don't have a good handle on what it actually is. We launched a balloon into that and got a good reading of it, but we don't launch weather balloons here. But if we did, we'd have much better, understanding of where it's going to end up going. So it's a data problem out here. Okay, with all of that, let me just kind of show you what's up. Okay, so the current model runs, GFS left, European right. These are the 0Z runs, the latest I have available. So we can see the system rolling through the west. Gathers some strength here in the northern plains. Going to be some widespread snow in Montana, North Dakota, and then again here in this part of the southern Canadian Prairie. All regions that desperately need moisture, as we've been talking about. And then toward Friday morning, Friday, no, that was early Friday morning. Friday, about 6 a.m., that front clears through the Ohio River Valley, stretches down here toward the Mid-South, and then it moves on off. Let's watch here. In both models, developing into Ontario and out of Ontario and into Quebec. Now, there's a lingering front here, and there is a wave that'll come in there. So you're going to watch rain spread from eastern Texas all the way to the Blue Ridge Mountains. So you see that going through. That's just the leftover of that previous system. Now remember, after this is Sunday, getting into Monday and Tuesday. The models are taking, both of them, the GFS and the Euro, are now taking the southern track of that trough I mentioned that's way over the Aleutian Islands today. And what they're doing with it is, like the European, watch over here, it's trying to put down some snow initially here and then just kick this system right over to the southeast and right in through this area here, bring in the decent heavy snows. What's the GFS? It's slower, which is odd, and it takes the wave through, Missouri, Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, dumping snow with heavier rain just to the south of it, and then kicks the low right through the mid-Atlantic and dumps a bunch of snow there. And who knows? This is not even close to what will actually happen. It's just to show you where the models are currently thinking. And remember, that time frame is starting this Sunday through next Thursday, right? That's the time frame we're looking at for this next system. Okay, let's look at it a couple of other ways. How about a 7-day forecast, which goes all the way out to next Monday night, looking at the GFS forecast for total precipitation. And here's the European. So this is the GFS and the European, and here's the difference. Now, I just noticed something. This map there it goes. That's the newest map. That was the 12Z difference. This is now the 0Z difference. Notice the European is the much wetter model coming through this area than the GFS is. I just wanted to point that out. It's relatively consistent run to run, but I need you to know that the model runs are bouncing all over the place after the next probably 3 or 4 days. So that is why we have to look out there after examining these snow maps at the ensembles. So here's your 7-day forecast from the European on total snow. Here's the newest one from the GFS. So I'm bouncing these back and forth because I'm trying to actually watch this. I know this snow is going to be all over the place in its forecast, but it's the Northern Plains Canadian prairie snow that I'm keeping a close eye on in terms of totals here. And that's not to ignore the mountains. This is an area that desperately needs moisture. Okay, with all of that, which is basically just me telling you we don't know where this next system is going to go at some point next week, starting Sunday, but Sunday through Thursday, can I show you the probabilities? So this is now 101 simulations of your weather, and the chance of getting an inch is shown here, probability. So you can see down here 50 to 100%. If we go step this up to 3 inches, well, that's where I want to find that heaviest snow band, right in through here, and then throughout the west. But take note that the European ensemble has got something in here, but also something for the Appalachian Mountains, okay, at 3 inches. But this is very weak signal overall. 6 inches, yeah, we need this moisture terribly. And we go up to 12, and it's mostly going to be confined to the Intermountain West, where we do have winter storm warnings out at this point. Let's flip this over from the winter side of it to just the probabilities of everything, so total precip. And let's go to who's going to be dry. Over the next 10 days, here in parts of western Texas, stretching up into this big section here, the western Corn Belt, this is an area that, in terms of total liquid, we're looking at a higher probability, 50% or better, of staying under 1/10 of an inch. We bring that up to who's going to stay under 1/2 inch, and now you can see that it's, those same two areas pretty dry. Also pockets of the Pacific Northwest inside the rain shadow here. On the wetter side of this, chance of getting an inch, so wettest in through here with that next system, and the chance of getting 2 inches. So just kind of to put a point on this. So that's where we have to live. We have to live in the ensemble probabilities. Can't really go much beyond that to say anything of confidence with these next few systems. Okay, from here, let's get toward the end of this video. We do notice that by February 16th, there's a couple of areas, some Scandinavian, some Greenland, and also some Alaskan ridging. And that's the kind of event that needs to happen. We've got to get higher heights, higher pressure building up north to displace colder air. But you do note that as we play past the middle of the month, the jet stream is still living in its far southern trajectory here, still really promoted by the subtropical component, not the polar component, a very weak polar component this year. But there are ridges pushing up in these directions, which is what's allowing for some colder air to come out. But it's going to keep the wettest weather pretty far to the south. I mean, you can see the CPC, the European, and the GFS ensemble, all of them keep the wettest conditions farthest to the south. Very El Nino-like, for mid-February precipitation patterns. On the temperature side of it, we're going to finally displace a lot of this very, very warm air and get it out and farther to the east and then bring in some cooler weather behind it. But it's going to take a while. That's Tuesday's highs getting into Wednesday. 60s in Iowa, 50s in Minnesota. Just crazy to think about this. There's Thursday getting into Friday. This is Saturday, Sunday, Monday. You can see the pattern still favoring such warm conditions here. But day 5 through 10, and the getting out there, day 10 through 15, that's when the ridging occurs. And that's the displacement. And the GFS locked into this first, showing the colder air coming out and then staying down here. But the European has still got it. That's day 5 through 10. And this is day 10 through 15. Much colder conditions here, although the Euro is more reluctant at unloading the warm air that's sitting in this area. I'm not sure why. I need to do a little bit deeper digging, but that's one thing that there's a major difference in. So that's day 10 through 15 from the Euro. This is day 10 through 15 from the GFS. There are some similarities, but just note the GFS is the colder model. Okay, we are still waiting on the same thing. I know it's a bit broken record, but if we could have got this MJO over here, we would be talking about a significant sustained cold air outbreak, but it's still hanging out in phase 7. So I'm waiting on that to update any sort of a long-range outlook. We did a lot of long-range stuff yesterday. We'll do more of it later this week, but that's what I'm waiting on. I do want to make one comment. The polar vortex this morning, right now, is sitting right over the Scandinavian countries, and that's partly why, this area is in such deep cold air right here. See it? Okay, but where is it going? And I want to show you that by doing an animation. So there it currently sits in the deepest blues. We have a question. I brought it up last week, but we'll just talk about it again. That once we get out here toward the end of the month, the models want to hint at, not the end of the month, forgive me, the middle of the month, the 16th. The models want to hint at bringing in a stratospheric ridge into the Arctic, taking that once stable today polar vortex and splitting it into two pieces. If that happens, that's going to get things kind of wobbling around a bit in the stratosphere, and which could link up with tropospheric cold. So I want you to know that I don't think we're done with cold air just yet, but as we get into March, it's hard to outdo sun angles and longer days. We pick up a lot of hours of sunlight in the northern hemisphere in February and March, so we'll watch this carefully. From here, because I don't have any new long-range story for you, I'll be working on it the rest of this week. I just want to take you to that global picture again. And take note of how mild most of Europe is, except for the Scandinavian countries and northern Russia, which has cooled down lately in the new forecast. But you can kind of just see globally what the temperature pattern looks like. In terms of moisture, just want to point out how wet Europe is as well. We'll talk about what's going on right here in Australia with more tropical moisture kind of surging in. MJO stalling in phase 7 is helping that, so that's been a bit of a missed forecast here. For me, about 2 weeks ago, I didn't think we would stay this wet, but we have. And I also want to talk about South America, because over the next couple of days, a front comes up, there it is, by the 8th, sliding through Argentina, ending this warm stretch they've had, bringing in the kind of rains that will just kind of undo, I think, any issue that happened. The drier spot compared to average is southern Brazil, but northern Brazil continues to get wetter conditions here overall, which is going to be important for the safrinha crop that's going in. So good consistency overall with the bigger picture of things. We'll talk more about the long range later this week, but I wanted you to see some of the back and forth the models are using right now to kind of paint a confusing picture on the next couple systems coming across the U.S. So we'll stop there. Have a good rest of your day, and we'll talk soon. Thanks.